Hello, my name is Rickard, and in this tutorial, I'm going to show you everything you need to know about adjustment presets in Photoshop. Adobe has just updated the adjustment presets feature in Adobe Photoshop 2024, giving you the ability to create and save your own presets. And this opens up the door to a whole bunch of creative possibilities, which we're going to explore in this video. Now, if you want to follow along, I have included a link in the description of this video with all the assets that I use, as well as some pre-made adjustment presets that you can load into your own Photoshop. Go ahead, download those, and then let's dive into Photoshop. All right, I'm going to go to File, Open, and we're going to start with this sample photo. This is a photo I got from Pexels. And first, let's go ahead and open the Adjustments panel. This is what it's going to look like. Now, if you've used Photoshop in the past, go to these three dots here, the contextual menu, go to Classic View. This is probably what you're used to the adjustment panel looking like. And here, basically, you just have shortcuts for the adjustment layers that you can add to your layer stack here. Now, with the modern view, you have some new elements. So here, your single presets have all been put into this menu. And if you click on this, you can get an icon view. And if you click again, this is the list view with their names. You can also collapse these. Next, you have your presets. So these are presets that you create, and that's what we're going to delve into in a second here. But before I delve into that, I want to show you these adjustment presets that you have here, and these are ones that are provided with Photoshop. If we click on this, you can see what they are. Now, a big advantage here is if I hover over these, you can actually get a preview of what this adjustment preset is going to look like on your image. And if I click on the More button, you can see that I have a lot more. I have ones that are made for portraits. I have ones here that are made for landscape. And as I hover over them, you can see I'm getting a preview without any change to my actual image. And if I click on one of these, what it's going to do is it's going to add a folder with a mask, and the folder name is going to have the name of the preset, and then inside that folder is going to be the adjustment layers that it's using to create this look. So let's go ahead and throw this away, and let's go back to our View All. So that's basically your adjustment preset. And from here, you have a few other options. First, you can make one of your adjustment layers. So if you have a specific adjustment layer in mind, like a curves, you can do that here, and you have the option of adding it. In addition, you also have the option to add a mask by default, or if you click on this, now when you add one, you can see that these two here do not have a mask by default. However, the group adjustment layer does have a mask by default, and there's not a way to change that currently. Next, you have clip to layer. So let's go ahead and make this a standard layer here. If I turn on the clip to layer, when I add an adjustment preset, you can see that it's clipped it to this layer, meaning it's only going to apply it to this layer. It's not going to apply it to the entire layer stack. You can unclip that here, and also by holding Option or Alt, hovering between the two layers, you can unclip it. All right, let's go back here to our adjustment. I'm going to turn this off, and I'm going to turn the Add Mask by Default back on. Okay, here you can import presets, and we'll cover that in a few minutes. And then here you have your modern view and then your classic view, which just gives you the icons of your various adjustment layers. And then you can turn on the panel by clicking on the icon. You can also close the panel here which will close the panel. To open it again, just go up to your window, down to adjustments. Okay, so now that we've covered pretty much all the basics of the adjustments panel, what I want to do is show you the new addition in Photoshop 2024. This was released just a few days ago, and that is the ability to create your own presets. So in the last version of Photoshop, they did have these presets that are made by Adobe. However, I've never really found the kind of defaults that Adobe provides very useful. But there is a lot of value in being able to create your own presets. So let's go ahead and create our own preset for this image. I'm going to go ahead and delete this so we just have our original layer. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add a few adjustment layers. So what I want to do is I want to create a preset that'll turn this image into more of an autumn look. So I want it to have more warm colors. I want the greens to be more red and yellow. So first I'm going to go down here and I'm going to add a channel mixer. This is one of these color adjustment tools that we don't use often, but for this it's going to do a good trick to create my greens. So here is my output channel. I want this to be on green. I'm going to take the green here and set this to 0. And then I'm going to take my red and set it to 50% and my blue and set it to 50%. So what I'm doing is I'm taking the channel information from red and blue and using those to replace the green channel information. And effectively, I'm taking all the greens in my image and pushing them toward this nice orange color. All right, next, what I want to do is a little bit of a color grade on top of the whole thing. So I'm going to do that with a color balance. So let's choose color balance here. And here I want to first target the shadows, and I want to add a little bit of red into the shadows. And then I'm going to target my highlights, and I want to push yellow into my highlights. And then in the midtones, I'm going to counterbalance this with just a little bit of green and a little bit of cyan. Okay, so there you have it. That's the preset that I want. Now what I'm going to do is select both of these and make sure you select both. And you can do that by holding down Command and clicking on the second one, or holding down Shift and clicking on the second one. That'll select both adjustment layers. Now I can open my adjustments panel, and then next to your presets, I'm going to click on this plus button and give my preset a name. I'm going to call this one Autumn, and then hit save. Now, if I open this up, you're going to see I have this autumn. I'm going to go ahead and throw these two away. And now you can see if I hover over this autumn and give it just a half a beat, you can see what this image will look like when I apply this preset to it. So here, if I click on it, I now have a folder called Autumn with the two color adjustments that I did. So there you have it. That's how you create your own preset. Next, we're going to create another preset, but for this, I want to open another image. So I'm going to go ahead and close this and not save. And then let's go to Open. And for this, I want to open the MJ model photo. Okay, so for this one, I'm going to do a few other things. I want to create kind of an urban look where I desaturate all the colors except for the red and the skin tones, and then also give it a color grade. So first, I'm going to go to my hue saturation. And here, I want to target the reds. So I'm going to go here to this. I actually want to target everything but the reds, but I'm just going to use this to first create this selector here. And I basically want to invert this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take from the middle, push it away from the red, and then I'm going to grab this slightly darker gray here, push it to the left until it shows up on the right side, and then drag it until it's hitting kind of the orange skin tony colors. So somewhere around there, I can also make this a little tighter. So this is basically the feather. So something like this. And then I'm going to take my saturation and push it down, 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 down. I basically want to get rid of all the color in this area, except for in the skin tones and in her lips. And I can adjust this. And I think that looks pretty good. Now, I don't want to get rid of all the color. I want to get rid of it about 90%. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take the opacity of this layer down to 90. So let's go ahead and do that. Bring this down to 90. We can also just hit 9 on our keyboard with this layer selected, 9. And that'll set our opacity to 90. So now I just have a tiny bit of this color showing through. Now I might want to change it to 80%, so let's hit 8 on our keyboard. Now the opacity of this layer is 80. We have a little bit more of that blue coming through here. All right, the next thing I want to do is add a curve. So let's go ahead and add a curve here. And in my curve, I want to basically compress some of these blacks, give it a bit of a matte black look. So to do that, I'm going to go to my black point down here. Now, generally, you can do that by lifting this, but that's going to also brighten your whole image. So instead of doing that, I'm going to keep this line on the diagonal and just start moving it up the diagonal. So my black point will move up the diagonal. And what I'm doing is I'm compressing my blacks here. If I turn my thing, you can see my blacks are becoming a slight gray color. So that's just kind of an urban matte look there. And I think I'm pretty happy with that. I also want to give it just a little bit of an S-curve. So I'm going to leave the black point alone, add another point here that just adds a little bit of darkness, and then another one here that just gives me a little bit of contrast. So something like this. And then finally, I want to add a bit of a color grade. I want my shadow areas to be a bit bluer, and then my light areas to be a little bit on the yellow side. And I'm going to do that with a gradient map. So let's go here, and I'm going to add a gradient map. And in my gradient map, I'm going to make the left color, meaning the color that's affecting my blacks, I want to turn that to a blue color here. And generally when you're doing a gradient map for color grading, you want your brightness to be at about 50%. And then let's go ahead and make this about there. I think looks good. And depending on how saturated you want your color, you're going to move it from the left if you don't want a lot of saturation, to the right if you want a lot of saturation. I want quite a bit of saturation, so I'm going to put it about there. Next, we're going to do the right side, and this will affect all of our light areas. And again, I want the brightness to be at around 50%. And for this, I want the color to be a warm yellowish, and I don't want that much of it. So probably somewhere around here, maybe a little more. And I probably want it to be a slightly warmer yellow, so something like this. I'm going to hit OK, hit OK. And then here I want the blending mode to be on soft light. You can see if I turn that on and off, that's primarily affecting our colors. Now it is making the whole image a bit darker, so I'm just going to go in here and adjust this and make this a little bit lighter so that it's not darkening my image. So probably somewhere around there. And then maybe on the blue side, I'll pump this up a little bit more too. I kind of like the more saturated blue in my shadows. So something like that. So I'm happy with this. Now there's a couple things I want you to notice here. I'm going to go ahead and select all three of these and then go to my adjustment presets. I'm going to click the plus button and I'm going to call this Urban Blue. And let's hit save. And let's go ahead and throw these away. And then if we hover over this, you can see that's giving us that preset. I'm going to click on it. And now you can see we have a folder called Urban Blue with our 3 adjustment layers. Now, notice that the gradient map, the blending mode is preset to soft light. And if I go down to my hue saturation layer, you can see the opacity is preset to 80%. So that's something that when you're creating your adjustment layers, your opacity, your fill, and your blending mode are all saved into your adjustment preset. So that's something that you can really take advantage of when you're fine-tuning your presets. It also gives you the ability to, after the fact, make whatever changes you want. And this is something I really like about this new adjustment presets, is that it's not baking in something into your image like a LUT. Instead, it's just giving you adjustment layers that you can then go back and adjust to your own liking. So for example, here, I might go in here, go down to my, so it's on the cyan. Here, I could adjust how much. So maybe I want the yellow streaks in the background showing. Well, I could just go in here and move this to the right. And now those yellow streaks are going to be showing instead of just the skin tones. Or I could push it more to the left and just have the lips showing. So you can adjust these after the fact, which is a great advantage with these adjustment layers. And obviously, if I throw this away, because I didn't save that as a new preset, the adjustment layer here is the one I originally created. Okay, let's go ahead and close this. There's one more we're going to do. Let's go to Open, and this is going to be the red dress sample. And for this, I want to create kind of a Schindler's List, and I want to show you one other feature that we can use here. So here, I want to basically make this image black and white, except for the dress. And I also want to punch up this red a little bit, make it a little bit deeper. So in order to make the red deeper, I'm going to do a little trick with the black and white. So here, let me just drag this over here so we can see our image as I'm doing it. I'm going to change the blending mode of this layer to luminosity. So now, in theory, it should look the same, but the advantage here is I can target these individual colors and make them lighter or darker. So here, I want to make my red a little bit darker. And I can also, if I want to, make my greens and other colors a little bit brighter. This is all kind of depends on your image. So you may not want to affect these that much, because realize when you're doing a preset, you may fine tune it to one image, but you also kind of want this preset to work on more than one image. Okay, so I'm going to leave it at that. All this is doing is changing the luminosity here based on colors, because I've set the blend mode to luminosity. And remember that your adjustment presets do save your blending mode. All right, next we're going to do the same thing we did on our other preset with hue saturation. I'm going to target, let's go ahead and target this green area here, but I'm going to push this so that it's targeting everything but my red. And then I'm going to take the saturation down to 0. Move this so that it's really just targeting that red there, trying to get rid of the color in her legs. So something like this looks really good. And then finally, I want to give it a little bit more of a cinematic color grade. So primarily just push a little bit more cyan into our shadows. So we could do that with various color tools here. I think I'm just going to do it with a color balance. Keep this simple. And I'm going to go to my shadows, push a little bit of cyan in there and a little bit of blue. And I'm happy with that. Let's go ahead and save all these. So I've selected all these. Let's go to our adjustments, create a new one, and we'll call this Schindler's List. So there you have it. We've now created 3 presets. And if I throw these away, hover over this, you can see that that's going to create that preset. You can also see what these other presets look like on this image. All very interesting, cool looks that you can now add to your image with a single click. All right, let's go ahead and close this. I want to show you one more thing. I'm going to go File, Open, and open this LR model. And this is a trick that you can use if you've already created presets in the past. So for example, I've created a lot of curve presets. So if I go to my adjustments here and go to curves and go to presets here, I'm going to go to, here we go, load curve presets. Right, so these are all curve presets that I have. I'm going to go ahead and load one called Cream, if I can find it. Right, so here, this is a curve preset that creates this really cool cream color grade. And you can see it's a pretty intense adjustment to the curve. Now what I can do is save this as an adjustment preset. So I can give it the same name. And the advantage of this is with a curve preset. So if I went in here and just went to curve, there's no way for me to preview this. If I hover over the cream, it's not going to show it to me until I've actually applied the curve preset. But, and this becomes more obnoxious the more presets you have. If you have 20 different presets and you want to preview what it's going to look like, which one is going to give your image the best color grade, there's no way to do that with your curve presets. However, when you save them as adjustment presets, you can now preview them by just hovering over your image. And what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to load some presets. So if I import presets and if we go back to our assets folder, you're going to see this sample nuclei presets. I'm going to go ahead and load those. And some of these are copies of the ones we've just created, but I want to show you a few others. So this one creates a posterize effect. And this is being done with the posterize adjustment layer and then a gradient map. This intense fall is similar to the autumn one created. Cream is the adjustment layer there. Blue shadows is another really nice one. You can see that basically makes my shadows blue and my highlights yellow. Agfa color, this is based on a film emulation preset that matches Agfa color. So you can see one of the really big advantages with having these is that you have the ability to hover over and preview what your preset is going to look like. Okay, so with all that said, I do have a few notes of things that you should know, take into consideration. You could consider them somewhat limitations on this tool. So first, if you go to your adjustment presets, these top 3, so solid color, gradient, and pattern, will not be saved in your adjustment presets. So don't bother trying to make something with one of these 3. They will not be saved in your adjustment preset. Secondly, masks are not saved in your adjustment preset for somewhat obvious reasons, although I can think of cases where you would want a mask, maybe a gradient or a vignette. So I hope Photoshop in the future does add some functionality there. By default, when you do add one of these to your image, it's going to add a blank mask to the group. However, if you do have a selection ahead of time, that will be taken into account when you add it. So you'll notice that that circle was added to my group adjustment layer. Now, one thing of note here is that when you're adding a single adjustment layer like this, and you hold down Option, your mask is inverted. And that's not the case when you do a adjustment preset. So I hope that's something that Photoshop allows for in the future. By just holding down Option, you can invert your mask. Until then, what you'll have to do is just make your mask first, add it, and then what you can do here is just double click on the mask, invert it here. So that's another limitation. A few other things, blend if settings. So if you wanted to use a blend if setting on one of your adjustment layers, that is not saved in your preset. Only the opacity, fill, and blending mode are saved in the preset. Also, if you name these, so for example, if I wanted to name this initial posterize, S-curve, and then blue yellow, these names will not be saved in your adjustment preset. Again, I'm hoping that this is something Adobe fixes in the future, because if you're making a large adjustment preset, it helps to know what the individual adjustment layers are accomplishing without having to double click and look at the settings inside. So there you have it. That is the new adjustment presets in Photoshop. And hopefully you can see the creative possibilities that this opens. One of my favorite features is the ability to preview these looks before you apply them to your image. I also am really happy that this tool works directly in your layer stack, meaning once you've applied a preset, you can easily adjust it to match your image. Now, if you want to learn more about color grading, how to use all the individual adjustment tools inside of Photoshop to take full control of your color, check out my color grading masterclass. It is a comprehensive course on taking full control of color in Photoshop. I have included a link to it in the description of this video. Otherwise, if you enjoyed this video, subscribe to my channel, turn on notifications, leave a like, leave a comment. How are you using adjustment presets in Photoshop? Also, if you have any questions, you can throw those in the comments. I do read them all and try to respond to all of them. All right, and here's some other tutorials that you can check out. I will see you next time.